Well, you're not going to get out of this one.
Nope. Okay, kids, it looks like we're going to have a wreck. Put on your safety belts.
If you had a few seconds before a collision, wouldn't you put on your safety belt? Of course you would, but collisions don't wait for you to buckle up. The time to put on your safety belt is before you even get on the road.
Thank goodness for safety belts.
Yeah.
Safety belts. Smart. From the start.
No matter how good a driver you are, you can't avoid every crash, and you can't predict when they're going to happen. Recognizing that traffic crashes could not be eliminated, the Indiana State Police in 1949 launched the nation's first study of traffic crash injuries. Troopers conducted in-depth accident investigations and worked closely with the Indiana Medical Association. Particular attention was given to the damage of the interior of the wrecked vehicle. Those detailed police investigations and medical reports confirmed people died in crashes or were seriously injured because on impact they were thrown from the vehicle or violently thrown around in it, going through the windshield or smashing into the steering wheel, the metal dash, or the doorpost. The solution: safety belts and drastic changes in the design of vehicle interiors. Once the findings were given to car manufacturers, the changes began, like safety door locks that keep doors locked in wrecks, padded dashboards and sun visors, safer steering wheels, and, of course, safety belts. Every car manufactured since 1964 must have safety belts, and Indiana law requires you to wear them. Some people believe it's better to be thrown out of the car in a crash. If you leave a car that's traveling 30 miles per hour, you'll be traveling 30 miles per hour when you hit the concrete, a pole, or maybe you're just lying dazed in the road. Don't you think you're better off in your seat with your safety belt buckled to hold you there?
Indy car racing champion Rick Mears.
Well, obviously I survived that crash, and we've been fortunate enough to survive a couple others. And it's really due to seatbelts. You know, without the seatbelts, I wouldn't be here to be able to talk to you. Driving a race car is a risky business, but driving on a street's a risky business also. At times I feel it's more of a risk on the street than it is on a racetrack.
Water was all over the pavement, so my wheels caught that water, and I was still going a little too fast for that turn, so went over, off the side of the road, over the guardrail, and my car double rolled. And I never really thought about the seatbelt much prior to that time, but I was glad to have had it on then because I wasn't hurt really, but that was the longest couple of seconds I think I've ever experienced. It just seemed like it was never going to stop, and all these thoughts go through your mind while you're rolling over twice in a car. It's like the endless, I don't know, it's just endless, it seemed. Kept thinking, I wonder do I have insurance? Looks like I'm gonna live. I don't see my life flashing before my eyes, but gosh, why is this taking so long, and what's gonna happen next? And the next thing, the car finally lands on the roof, and there I am hanging there, wondering, rather disoriented, not knowing where anything is, except that the stereo is still blaring nice and loud to try to keep me awake. So I kind of hang there for a couple of seconds and think, why am I hanging upside down? Oh, the seatbelt's on. You know, double rolling your car, you think, well, must have had some severe injuries, but actually I think I jammed my finger, and I was complaining about the pain in my jammed finger. And looking at my car, which was in a sorry state, it was all crunched up, but it was an interesting occurrence.
I think one of the most interesting things to me, as I've done some research into seatbelt usage and the ability to save lives, is that if you're wearing your seatbelt, your likelihood of surviving a car wreck is increased by tenfold. Now, if you are not wearing a seatbelt and you're ejected from the automobile, your likelihood of either dying or suffering some permanent disability is 20-fold that if you were wearing a seatbelt. So the statistics are just phenomenal to me. in that if you put your seatbelt on, if you're a betting person, you realize that just buckling up, you're increasing your likelihood of surviving or not having a permanent disability by at least 20 times. And that's a phenomenal statistic. So that says to me, it makes a lot of sense to spend 1 or 2 seconds buckling your seatbelt than to get in a car and risk that potential death or disability from that injury by not having your seatbelt on. It's been fascinating for me because I've been in emergency medicine now for 14 years. And during that 14 years, I have seen a tremendous number of automobile accidents, motorcycle accidents. And I can tell when I first walk into the room whether someone had their seatbelt on or not just by virtue of the injuries that they've suffered. Every so often I'll hear somebody say, well, what if I go off into a creek or into some water and I'm not able to get out of my seatbelt? Doesn't that increase my risk? Well, there certainly are some isolated events where you might be at a little bit increased risk, but most of us play the odds and play the statistics. And again, statistics say if you don't wear your seatbelt, your likelihood of suffering permanent disability or death are so much higher than if you have your seatbelt on. So I know that there are some isolated exceptions, but those are isolated and those are exceptions. They're certainly not the rule. I imagine over the 14 years of time that I practiced emergency medicine, I imagine I've seen somewhere between 10 and 20,000 automobile accident injuries. And again, time and time again, if you have your seatbelt on, you don't suffer any permanent severe injury. If you're not wearing your seatbelt, your likelihood of death or disability is markedly increased.
Last year, there were over 500 traffic crashes a day in Indiana. Each crash potentially deadly. Indiana's death toll dropped again last year, but still, 891 people died on Hoosier roads in 1993. Over 75,000 people were hurt in Indiana traffic crashes last year. That's 4% over the previous year. Over 75,000 people hurt. That's equal to 3.5 times the population of Vincennes. It's over twice the combined population of Boonville, Fort Branch, Mount Vernon, New Harmony, Newburgh, Petersburg, and Princeton. Or 14 times the entire workforce at Whirlpool's Evansville plant. In order to save lives and reduce serious injury, Indiana troopers strictly enforce safety belt laws. Last year, over 41,000 tickets were issued for safety belt violations by the state police. We've also got a child restraint law in Indiana. The penalty for ignoring it could be much worse than a trip to court. Professionals behind the wheel, racers, drivers, and pilots, as well as medical experts, even crash survivors, all agree using safety belts is a matter of life and death.
Oh, I'm sure the seatbelt kept me from going up from through the windshield. That's the thing of it, you know. I'm sure that I would have got probably into the windshield. I don't know for sure, but the impact was pretty hard.
The organizations and people who've participated in this video want you to wear your safety belt. Their experiences speak for themselves. So please remember what they've said, and next time, buckle up before you get on the road.